There it is. All right. We are live. And today I'm going to be talking about training with and around injuries, depending on the degree of that injury. Essentially, I'm going to give some personal experiences based off what I've found to work, not work, or how I feel, or the kind of roller coaster it is. I'm going to start by sharing a tab because this is often what rehab feels like. Let me go share screen. Instagram. All right. Apologies, everyone. Share this screen. Share. Add to stage. Essentially, this is a video of what I used to tell myself during my back injury of what rehab was like. You know, you're laying the bricks or you're putting in the work and it feels like nothing's happening. And then eventually you see a breakthrough or something. And so it says, when nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that blow that did it, but all that had gone beforehand. And so just because he's put all this work in doesn't mean that it hasn't done anything, even though nothing's happened yet. And then eventually, finally, in this example, the rock breaks. So all that work that went into that moment there is what rehab can feel like sometimes. It feels like what you're doing is just doing nothing. It's not doing anything. You feel like you're not progressing. You go up and down in terms of what, you know, the journey feels like a roller coaster. And then all of a sudden, when you look back, it all had brought you to a point. And that point might be no injury anymore or being able to do those things again. So that, and if you've ever heard the ice cube analogy where it's like just because you're raising the temperature and the ice hasn't melted yet doesn't mean that the work's not happening, just takes a certain point for it to appear. And that's what, for me, let's go share this tab instead. That's what it looks like, that roller coaster. That's what working through rehab or recovering from injury can really look like. It's just, we all think it's just going to be one straight line progress forward, as this image displays. Easy, quick, straightforward. That's the expectation. And in reality, it's like the stock market. Goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. So setbacks, this post says setbacks are normal. It takes time and it's a process. And even if you've had an injury before, you still go through the roller coaster of emotions every new time. And with that, I'm just going to pause right there. I went looking for that. Oh, is this going to... I just lost my questions, so I'm just pulling them back up. So bear with me 1 second while I get them back in front of my face, just to make sure. Oh, yeah. So GIF's question was mentally dealing with injury and being sidelined, what you can do to keep stimulated. And TWITTA had also commented a while ago, his question being like my experience with injury recovery, particularly now with the wrist, but prior to that, the back injury that I had. And so that's probably where I'll kind of start a little bit of history. First though, hi Matt, afternoon to you. Thanks for joining in the comments as well. And Justin, lucky camera straps, it can definitely feel like it will never end, 100%. And my first major injury was my back injury in 2022, to the point where, and Justin will remember this probably very well, but what's really interesting is I had to think back. I was like, what year was that? Because now it feels like so long ago that it almost never happened. And Justin's had a back injury too, and I couldn't tell you what year that was. So it's also that reminder of like, you can go through injuries, and in that moment, it feels like it'll never end, and it feels like this will be your life forever in this moment. And then a couple of years can pass and you can think back and be wondering, like, I don't even remember what year that was. I have to go and check a couple of things to be like, was it 2021 or 2022 that happened? So in 2022, I had a really severe back injury. I had sciatic nerve pain, as well as just like what people would classify as back pain or a back injury, to the point where I couldn't sleep at night. I had to sleep on the lounge room floor, and I had to dose myself up with drugs before I went to sleep, just to be able to get to sleep. And I'd be lucky to get 4 hours without waking up in pain. And we all know sleep, or those of you listening probably well aware that sleep is really important for recovery. So to have sleep impacted in that way can be quite challenging while working through an injury too. Now, the difference, I wouldn't say difference, because again, Justin would probably argue otherwise. He would say that I never thought I would have reacted in a way where I thought I'm never going to get better from this back injury. One of the most hopeful things with my back injury is that in the CrossFit space, there are a lot of people that have experienced back injuries before, and they've come back from them stronger in the way of like physically stronger in some cases, but also just in terms of like their back is stronger from the rehab that they do from having that injury. So when I did have a back injury, even though it was a roller coaster of emotions where I was like, there were points in my life where I thought, like, I might as well be paralyzed. That's how bad this is for me. There was still that hope in the back of my mind of other people have gotten through this. Justin, for one, lots of CrossFit Games athletes who have come back to the CrossFit Games. So I was like, it is possible to recover from this. I think the most important thing when it comes to training with and around injuries isn't necessarily, I mean, obviously the training is important in itself, or the rehab that you're doing, but just having a support network around you so that when you're hitting your lowest lows, or when you're in the dip of that roller coaster rather than coming up into, you know, a bit more hopeful times, it's important to have people around you that acknowledge that you're injured, see that you're putting the effort in, support you in that effort that you're putting in, so that you don't feel like, what's the point? Why am I wasting my time? What's the point of this? I might as well just give up now. Because it's very easy to get caught in that negative spiral and that negative conversation with yourself and get lost in your injury and then never return from it, or it potentially even take longer to return from than what it might have if you had have surrounded yourself with the right people. Justin says, Guy had a major back injury, not the strongest athlete, now the strongest athlete in the field. So there have been a number of examples in powerlifting, strongman, CrossFit, where people who have had major back injuries have come back, and that's why I said come back stronger, and that's in terms of their lifts as well as just in general their back's capacity. But the stronger your back, the stronger your core, the better or the stronger you are theoretically with your training. So it carries over to physical strength also. Justin says, there were days when you said you were worried it would never end, but then you found a way to keep going. And so I went through everything with my back injury. You know, I was very lucky to have Nikita at the gym. She's an exercise physiologist. So this certainly isn't me saying CrossFit will sort out your injuries. It does depend on the degree and your own awareness and ability to work through them. But I was very lucky. Nikita was a coach at the gym, and she was also providing rehab programming. So she would program specifically for my injury in line with the class programming. So I had the ability to not have to think about what I was going to do when I turned up to the gym, because she'd already written it out for me. To have someone have an objective plan for you rather than your own thoughts and emotions interfering with what you're going to the gym to do makes a big difference, because we all know what decision fatigue is like. So imagine you're not getting much sleep, you're emotional already, You're upset because you can't do the things you could normally do. And therefore you start to think, well, what's the point of doing any of this? So to have someone like Nikita to sit down with me, and we created a plan together where it was like, hey, I can't do the things I normally do. We're going to make my back better. We're going to make my core stronger. And in doing that, we're going to pick some goals that are appropriate for me to do as well. Certainly did help in my ability to be consistent going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. And I might have been going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, but a lot of that was like, hey, this isn't high intensity work. This is structured rehab work in line with class that allowed me to still be social, which is super crucial for me in particular. The group setting helps me continue to train. I know that I'm far less likely to do what I should do or need to do if I'm not in that group environment. So the fact that Nikita was providing that service within the gym, I mean, I saw huge benefits for me. Justin saw huge benefits for him. There were anyone that was injured that took advantage of Nikita's knowledge and skills and used it to recover from their injury had great success from it. And it just goes to show, it's like if you've got someone who understands what you're doing and they're able to support you in continuing to do that while it also being injury specific or rehab specific, can make a big difference to your return to training. Now, more recently, my wrist at the start of 2025. This is where the wrist in particular is the one where, and just coming back to Justin's comment here, there were days where I said I was worried it would never end. So I haven't been in like pain with my wrist outside of the first part of the rehab and recovery from the actual injury. But I would say that my hopes for returning to things that I used to do were significantly lower than my back injury. And Justin might argue otherwise, because there were still things I could obviously do without using my hand for this most recent injury. But I would, and again, time might be tricking me, but I would say that I was more hopeful in my back injury that it would get better than what was provided to me externally for what my wrist would do as to whether it would get better. And that's where the roller coaster comes into it again. It's like I would see the hand physio at Bendigo Health outpatients once a week to start with, once a fortnight from there, and then once a month from there. And every time we went, nothing changed. There was no bend in my wrist. It was just like, all right, get your wrist to go back to this position. We'll measure how far it goes. And it would go from here to here. And for those that aren't watching, essentially there was no change at all. If I'd put a lot of effort in before my appointment, I could probably get it to come back. And now, that would be a lot of effort. And now that's naturally how far my wrist can bend after the most recent surgery I had. The thing that has given me more hope than I had, what month are we in? April, maybe even 6 months ago, is that having that most recent surgery, the surgeon wasn't confident prior. No one that I spoke to was confident that a surgery would help. And they just said, we have no way of knowing, so we can't tell you whether this is going to work or not. And so it is what it is, because they couldn't see inside my wrist. And so this is what I don't really like about, they don't like to give you hope if they don't know. And it makes, I mean, obviously it makes sense, because if you tell someone they can do something and then they can't do it, essentially you've lied to them. But all I wanted to hear from anyone that I worked with was, hey, this is going to take a lot of work and it might take a long time, but it is possible to get something back. And no one had said that to me, and everyone had kind of just said, you're probably never going to bend your wrist again. I don't know if this surgery is worth it. We might not be able to get you any more extension than you already have. This might just be how your life is. And that might be that. Or we could do the surgery and you could be in pain 24/7, and then you'll want to get a wrist fusion done instead. I had my checkup on Monday with the surgeon, and So I came out of surgery and the surgeon showed me a photo he took while I was under, and he could bend my wrist back to about there, and he seemed surprised with that. And when I had my checkup on Monday, he said he sounded so hopeful for me. And I was like, oh, this is a big difference in how I feel about this now because he's presenting in this way. It just was that reminder to me that because I'm going through this roller coaster, I can be easily affected by someone's lack of hope or someone's positive outlook on it. So when we saw the surgeon on Monday, he said, I was really happy with the surgery. We took out a lot of scar tissue from your wrist. I was able to apply light pressure to your wrist and it would bend back. And I think that with some work, you can maintain and increase your wrist extension. And I was just like, oh, yeah, because at the end of the day, that's all I want to hear. You spend all your time in the CrossFit space encouraging people to try things, encouraging them to work hard, reminding them that, yes, I know this is hard to do, but it will pay off in the end. And to finally have someone say, hey, I'm positive that if you put the work in, you can get where you want to be. Maybe you still can't do, he didn't say this, but maybe I still can't do everything that I used to be able to do, but certainly the idea of being able to get back to those movements is exciting for me, and it gives me hope and it gives me purpose and it gives me the want to continue to progressing through my training and with my rehab, because the outcome might be that one day, it might take 10 years, but one day I might be able to handstand walk again. One day I might be able to do a wall walk again. Eventually I should be able to front rack a barbell again. Like being able to do Olympic weightlifting and gymnastics again would be massive for my training and what I enjoy from my training, purely because for the last 12 months, all I felt like I've been able to do is high rock style training, because that's all my wrist can really handle. Now, I'm going to pause my talking for a moment and come to the comments. Justin says, not sure how I would have gone without Nikita. So yeah, both Justin and I had back injuries. Nikita supported us through both of them. Like I said, it's so helpful to have the ability to continue turning up where you've got a regular schedule or routine, so to the gym, and be able to progress through your injury with that support. And look at that, Nikita's in the chat too. Am I allowed to say my favorite patients are you two? Of course you can, haha. We are proof. And it's funny because I think if Nikita is still listening, she would laugh about how different Justin and I both are, because I remember her saying once, Justin's always a bit too cautious, whereas I could be a little bit too eager to do things. And that's that roller coaster journey too. If you use me for an example, I might be keen to try something a bit too soon, and it might affect my injury, irritate it more, upset it more than what, say, Justin goes a little slower progressing through things. And so I might see more setbacks, but the best thing Nikita ever said to me was, hey, there's nothing wrong with a setback. It's all part of that journey. It's all part of the ups and downs, like the stock market, as long as you come back from that setback faster than the first time. And then the third time you have a setback, you come back from that setback a little bit faster than the second time. And then eventually over time, when you have setbacks, you find that it's 3 days, it's 2 days to recover, it's 1 day. And then you start building this awareness and understanding of yourself, where at the end of the day, it's like, you'll know immediately, I did too much today, I need to pull back for the next couple of days. Or you might be in the middle of the workout going, I'm just going to call it now because it's not worth what the pain might be for the next couple of days from that point. Justin, it was different, but both hit you hard. So Justin's referring to my back injury versus my wrist. The relentless pain and sleep deprivation really impacted me. Plus not being able to do anything physical some days, not even a jog. So I remember, and it's crazy to think back, I couldn't even walk 100 meters without being in pain. And I used to painfully get in my car, drive to the pool, which is 2 minutes away from my house, painfully get out of the car, get into the pool, and then just spend 40 minutes walking up and back the pool as a way to get outside, do some sort of exercise, movement, and get in the sun. And that was across winter, and I am so thankful that the Bendigo East swimming pool was open across the winter season, because the ability to just tick some positive boxes, which is get outside, get some sunlight, get some fresh air, get your body moving, just mentally for me helped a lot too. And Justin says, yes, you are, Nikita. Nikita, you are allowed to say we are your favourite patients. Where are my notes? So I've spoken about me for 20 minutes. Yay, me. The biggest thing for this probably too is just having an industry. Having an injury has helped me so much understand how to better support people at the gym too. Maybe even because of the injuries I've been through and how I felt about it, maybe I even, let's see how this sentence comes out. Maybe I even favor injured people more when I'm coaching, not because I prefer them, but I want them to feel seen. Just a laugh because I said feel seen. Like I want whoever can, if you come to the gym and you're injured, it's hard enough to come to the gym in the first place because you're like, what am I going to do today? So I always think, what would I like if I was this person? Oh, your knee is hurting. Okay, it's fine. We can find some options that we can do that might allow you, that will allow you still to participate in class without irritating your knee further. Or even maybe you're further through an injury, and this one's on the top of my head. Morgan had said to me on Tuesday she hadn't done box jumps in ages, and I asked her if she could jump at all, because obviously the workout was 20-inch box jump for the girls, and there's quite a high volume of box jumps. And Morgan would have seen that and gone, well, there's no way I can do that. And my question and it's always questions. I'm always asking, well, what do you think about this? Or how does this feel? Or have you tried this? Or what were you thinking today? To get an idea of where the person's at before I just go in and throw out ideas to them. And so Morgan in particular on Tuesday, she said, I'll probably do step-ups today. I said, can you jump at all? And she said, a little bit. And I said, could you jump on that 10-kilo plate? And she said, yeah, that was fine. And I said, can we try jumping on something slightly higher? We ended up deciding, we warmed up the 10-kilo plate jumps. I think we went 6-inch jumps, and then we landed, a 12-inch riser for her jumps. And the first 5, she's like, oh, you know, they don't feel bad, but I haven't done them in a long time, so it feels weird. And then as the workout progressed, she felt so confident in her movement that she even increased the height a little bit more. And we still kept the reps low so we didn't over-irritate it. But she said to me, thanks so much for getting me to jump today. I haven't jumped in such a long time. I was starting to think I wouldn't do it again. And so it's that sort of stuff where it's like, I didn't know how important that might have been to Morgan in that moment. I'm just trying to see, hey, is there a way we can do this movement to a variation that suits you right now, or a regression that suits you right now, that allows you to still feel like you're achieving something. And so that was a massive tick for Morgan. And that is kind of like, they're the little things that you can come in feeling terrible to a workout, and then you can leave feeling on top of the world just from one small thing. And that one small thing might be, today I did 20 12-inch box jumps, and I haven't done box jumps in X amount of time. Then she came in the next day and I said, how's that, how's your leg going? How did you pull up? She said, it feels like it hasn't been used in a while, but it feels good. And so they're big ticks for me as a coach. I'm like, yes, perfect. If she had said, hey, my knee really hurts, I think we overdid it yesterday, that is the setback I was referring to earlier, where Nikita was saying to me, hey, sometimes we have setbacks, and it's just how long does it take to come out of that setback again? So if Morgan had said, oof, I'm feeling terrible, my leg feels terrible, my knee feels terrible, everything feels terrible down there, it's like, all right, well, we learn a lesson from that. 20 box jumps to that height is still too many for you. 20 box jumps to half that height might have been okay, or 10 box jumps to that height might have been okay, but that's a lesson we can learn for the next time there might be box jumps, so that we can start building jumping back into training for someone who's injured. So that's a example of how my brain functions when someone comes into the gym with an injury. And like I said, sometimes I might bias injured people more than the regular people, the uninjured people at the gym, but it's not because I have a bias for them. I just understand how sometimes it can be so disheartening to be like, well, I can't do anything today, so what's the point of going to the gym? Or I can't do any of that, and I used to love doing that, so what's the point of going? And my biggest goal is to make sure that anyone that comes to a gym has a good time, but people who are having a tougher time than normal still walk away going, I'm glad I turned up today. That's exactly what I needed. I'm feeling more confident right now in my own recovery, that it then gives them hope. And if I can present that to them in that way, where they're showing themselves that they are getting better or they are progressing, even if sometimes it doesn't feel like it, and I can give them that hope, then they take that out, and that roller coaster becomes less of an up and down and more of that like consistent flow coming back to normal life. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat that anyone's thinking right now, or injuries that they've experienced. I'd like to feel like that's kind of covered mentally dealing with injury and being sidelined, and what you can do to keep stimulated. I guess I touched on like having goals that you can still progress towards. So with my wrist in particular, just to give that as an example, knowing that there was a lot of stuff I couldn't do, I thought, well, what better time to work on running than now? So instead of having to worry about having 5 or 6 days a week of workouts that I could do day after day after day that didn't involve using my wrist, I could think Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do CrossFit style workouts, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I can work on my running. So it's always really important to have a goal that you can achieve at the same time, so it doesn't feel like you're kind of not progressing in any way if it's only rehab. Matt says, the effort that you put in with the members who have had injuries is really appreciated. It definitely makes the class easier with that support. Thanks, Matt. And like I said, it's personal experience too. It's like, hey, I've been here. What would I like? Present that to the member, because if I would appreciate that, not many people wouldn't be appreciative of it if I presented it to them in that way. The only time, gosh, I get flustered sometimes if I forget to ask people before class starts if there's any injuries that I don't know about, and then halfway through the warm-up they tell me about something and I haven't thought about, like, oh my gosh, like what happens if someone can't, I don't know, throw an example out there, use their knee or their shoulder, then what? I get a little bit flustered in those moments, and then I get concerned sometimes too that I always give the same subs. So I'm always trying to think, okay, and I'll use, Carly's pregnant at the moment. Carly's a great example. Every time, I think she's getting discomfort when she hangs from the rig now. So anytime there's like toes to bar or sit-ups, she needs a variation that allows her to still work her core, but without hanging or performing sit-ups. And I don't want to always, I get nervous for myself that I always recommend the same thing. So what I do my best to do is like, all right, remember that Carly did planks last week, so this week she can do dumbbell plank drag throughs, or she's done 2 variations of planks the last 2 times I've coached her, so let's mix it up and maybe we do farmer's carries today instead, so that she's still getting some grip work if it's toes to bar, and she's still getting core stability from the carry position, but she doesn't feel like she's coming in and just always doing planks. Every time we do toes to bar, I do planks. Every time we do ab mat sit-ups, I do planks. Like, that's the last thing I want someone to feel when they come into the gym. So I am trying my best to mix it up for people so that it's still varied and it's still stimulating for them so that they can continue to progress through. Obviously, Carly being pregnant, there's a timeline on that, and then a recovery from pregnancy there too, which can feel a little different mentally because it's not a negative injury thing. It's a I'm having a baby positive experience for her. So she might not care as much, but I'm still really conscious of just always thinking like, don't give these people the same thing every single time because that can get boring for them, or it's hard to tell if they're getting better at that thing when it's just thrown in randomly in place of something because I haven't thought enough about it. Nikita, what did rehab look like for you in class? Was it doing something completely different or changing stuff, volume, intensity, etc.? Great question, Nikita. I know you know the answers, but you give me that alley-oop there. With my back injury, it really did depend on the movement. And I can say it like this. Nikita kept me more strict than core flexion extension because I needed to get strength back into my core without irritating my back. So when it came to class workouts, less volume, depending on the movements, that dictated whether or not I could push the intensity. But a lot of the time it was like, hey, we'll push the intensity once for the week, and the rest of the time it's really controlled, structured, specific, slow, strict, low volume, practice bracing sort of work. That was with my back injury. When it comes to my wrist injury right now, I mean, I would say the same thing. Funny that, right? The same thing. Prior to the second surgery I had, if I reflect back on some of the workouts I did, you know, there are clear things that I couldn't do, like flat-handed work, but a lot of I could get away with like a fist. So if we were doing burpees, I could go down like this onto my knuckles and come back up. If we were doing push-ups, I could be on my knees on dumbbells or on the bar on the rig. So again, it's like in terms of Nikita's question and being like, what does it look like in class? If I could scale the workout and still complete it with the same movements, then 100% that's the first step I would take. If I can't perform the movement at all, I'm thinking about the movement pattern or the muscle group that it's mainly working, and then I would use that as my what should I change this movement to, depending on the reason for the change. So let's use push-ups as the example with my wrists. The volume would be decreased there because my wrist just doesn't have, or my pressing capacity is gone since not having the ability to use my wrist there. So the volume decreased, but that might also assist the intensity staying up. So it really does chop and change and depend. And I'd have to use a specific workout example to probably get a better way to describe it to people. So maybe I'll use yesterday. Building in weight on power cleans every minute on the minute. So I can't clean unless I zombie clean. But I'm not doing a lot of heavy grip work at the moment. So building in weight on power cleans yesterday, I was like, oh, I shouldn't really be doing that. It's probably still a bit too soon to be going heavy in a gripped like movement. And I thought, so, all right, what's the goal of the power clean? Explosive hip drive. All right, how can I get explosive hip drive? I'm going to jump onto a high box. I don't need my wrist to jump onto a high box. I'm going to keep the rep range low. The class did every minute on the minute for 8 minutes, building in their power clean. I did every minute on the minute for 8 minutes. Minute 1, 3 high box jumps. Minute 2, some tricep work and some like wrist mobility stuff. And then the workout progressed to, what did everyone do? Descending cals on the machine and descending reps of heavy power cleans, and heavy being like, hey, do them in singles. And again, in my mind, I was like, I can row, I can bike, that should be fine. The power cleans I probably shouldn't be doing. It's still a little too soon. Doesn't feel appropriate, or doesn't make sense to me to do really lightweight dumbbell cleans at the moment, because it's just, I don't think that that's giving me the effect the workout is designed for. And then again, going back to the fact that I said on Tuesdays and Thursdays I've been running so that I have more movements to pick from without them crossing over every single day of the week. I then looked at that workout and thought, all right, well, yesterday everyone did wall walks, toes to bar, and box jump overs, and I didn't do that yesterday because I ran. So I used the box jumps from the power cleans, and I used GHDs in a way of the toes to bar movement, and I did rowing because I can row. That's not too much load on my wrist. So everyone else's workout was descending reps of cal machine and heavy power cleans, and my workout was within the same time window, but instead of being the same structure as class, I did every 3 minutes for 6 sets, row, GHD, box jumps. So the part of the reason why I chose to run 2 days a week is to allow me the ability that when I go into class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I can pick from that day's movements or the day prior's movements, so that I don't get too much double up, because the last thing I want to do is box jumps every day of the week or rowing every day of the week. Did I get off track in terms of Nikita's question? Maybe. Sometimes I find examples are easier to explain thought process, because obviously constantly varied workouts means that it's not all the same. So sometimes it can be hard to describe what might be different, but it depends. It's always the answer, isn't it? It depends. Nikita says, perfect. You want variation to avoid high volume across the week of the same movements, especially if their person is coming to a class WOD the next day, e.g. always doing box step-ups in lieu of jumping. Yes, and that's my biggest thing, because I might get on a tangent here, but in particular, people who don't jump because of an injury tend to then just always revert back to step-ups. But there is a, jumping is different from stepping. And so if I can, once the person's past the point of like, we're really irritating this injury if we jump, I'd like them to start with low jumps, because stepping up just isn't the same as jumping. Jumping is a movement in itself that isn't replicated through performing a step up, but a step up can certainly build leg strength to have the muscle strength to be able to jump. So it's something I always think about when the immediate sub for people when there's box jumps is to go straight to step ups. I'm like, hey, like, what's the lowest height you can jump on, and then let's do that. And that was me getting off onto a bit of a tangent. Justin, is there any special equipment that has been useful for your rehab, and can I buy more stuff? I'm not in control of what you buy, Justin. You just buy whatever you want, because I know you will anyway. Gosh, I mean, you can do a lot of it without really needing any equipment at all, particularly if you've got a back injury. I mean, realistically right now, for me, for my wrist, dumbbells have been more useful than barbells. Justin wants me to say things like the reverse hyper that we now own, which has been important for him. I don't use it as much as he does, so I shouldn't really speak on it too much. To the point where here we go. Talk Tank M3 incoming. Justin likes to buy gear. If anyone hasn't learnt that yet, he just likes to spend money on equipment. He will always use it though. So I can't blame him or I can't be angry because he uses the stuff he buys. Whereas I'm more, what can I do with what I've got available? And having less options sometimes makes things easier to decide what to do for rehab. But particularly anyone that's experiencing back pain, you don't need any equipment to rehab your back injury, particularly if it's bad to start with. You start with the McGill's Big 3. And again, it's that thing, that video I showed at the start. Where is it? Let me just reshare it while I search this other thing. Share this tab instead. It's this. McGill's Big 3 can feel like you're doing nothing over and over and over and over again. And it still feels like, when people say Pilates is hard, hey, McGill's Big 3 is hard when it's done hard when it's done properly. And every time you do it, it feels like it's doing nothing. And then all of a sudden, you find that your back's stronger and you don't need to, whatever it might be, change, scale, limit. It just gets stronger over time. Now, I was searching McGill's Big 3. Let me pause that. For those that don't know, if you've ever had a back injury and you don't know where to start, McGill's Big 3. Justin's got these books, so you can borrow them if you want to, but share this tab instead, share that. I'll just zoom in on it. The McGill Big 3 for core stability. Go look this up, MCGILL Big 3, like the number 3, and it will talk you through how to perform this for back injuries. So even if it's just sometimes, this can still help. So the 3 movements are the curl up, the side plank, and the bird dog, and the structure that you do them in. Very simply, curl up, 6 sets of 10-second holds, and then move to side plank, 6 sets of 10-second holds on each side, and then moving to the bird dog, 6 sets of 10 seconds hold on each side. And I went 6 by 10, 4 by 10, 2 by 10. It would take me 15 minutes. If class was doing a strength piece to start with, then that would be my 15-minute strength piece with my back injury. We tell everyone to do that if they've got back pain. Start there. Learn to brace, learn to stabilize your core better, and then see if that helps. And then if it's still, you're still having issues, then a more focused approach is probably required in terms of more focus into those movements. But as Nikita's question alluded to before, bringing volume down so that you're not irritating it, bringing movements from, say, kipping to strict or less core extension and flexion. So saying kipping is the easiest way. When we say ribs open, ribs close, that's, spine flexion, spine extension, and being able to control those movements from there. That'll start helping your brain, muscle, core engagement, core strength. Justin says, find books, podcasts, and YouTube videos from experts in your injury. It doesn't replace seeing a professional, but it helps you understand what they're telling you. And that's probably a really great point too. So that screen that I shared, that's Squat University. He's not the guy that designed the McGill Big 3, but he has put an article together back in 2018 about it. Stuart McGill is the guy that designed the McGill Big 3. You can go and look up that. I'm surprised that, doesn't come up first. But that's what the book is about. But on the flip side of that too, find yourself an exercise physiologist. Nikita, if you can see her at the hospital. Otherwise, Nikita has recommended there are 2 people in and around Bendigo. One of them works from Paddy Blood's Performance Centre, and the other one works out of Adaptation Health and Fitness, or Adaptation and Performance, or something. I can't remember their names, so that's the worst thing. I never remember their names. But if Nikita recommends them, then I'm happy to recommend them. I haven't seen either of them before, though. But I will take Nikita's words that as EPs, they will be very helpful for you. And she's worked with them before. And so I'm happy to recommend them. But yes, as Justin said, find books, podcasts, YouTube videos from experts in your injury. It doesn't replace seeing a professional, but it helps you understand what they're telling you. Cool. Well, if you listened, thanks so much. If you got something out of it, I'm glad. Even if you just saw an insight into how my brain works when I'm coaching people who are injured, hopefully that's helpful too. I think I probably will just wrap it up by saying, probably the biggest thing I've noticed is, let me get this screen off. Some of the things that have stood out to me the most is people who are injured don't want to ask for help because they feel like, and I've seen this in the CrossFit space, they feel like they're asking too much, or, I don't want to be annoying, so I'm not going to ask. And speaking from experience, I always do my best to ask, but sometimes I might forget. But don't feel like you're being annoying ever. The more questions you have, or the more open you are about it, the easier it is for me to assist you and support you and understand what it is you're going through, to then allow me to make more guided decisions to help you get the best out of your hour, week, month, whatever it might be. So don't ever feel like an inconvenience if you're injured. Please ask if I haven't asked already. And at the end of the day, my goal is, like I said, help you have the best hour, the best week, the whatever it is, but also help you build your understanding and awareness and ability to be like, what could I do today, or how much should I do today, to better understand that over time too, so that eventually, if, say, the injury reoccurs, you've already got the tools from the learning you've done prior, as opposed to just turning up, being told what to do, not thinking about it, and then not learning anything from it. So the progression should be you learn from this experience as well. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've popped in and you haven't already. If you give this video a thumbs up, I'm sure it helps something, somewhere, somehow, YouTube, something. Otherwise, thanks again for another 45 minutes of your time. I appreciate anyone that was on here the whole time and spent that whole time listening, or if you came in and out, even just a little bit of listen time, I'm still very much appreciative of. I will see you next week.